Good evening. I'm Sister Catherine Ryan from Maryville Academy, and this evening our guest is Kirti Gandhi from our Maryville Crisis Nursery. You are watching Maryville Cares, a live interactive program on Cable Access Network Television 21. We're also streaming online at cantv.org/hotline. The next 25 minutes is your chance to hear about and to discuss sensory play to help your children. You can call the number at the bottom of the screen. That is 312-738-1060 if you'd like to join this discussion. I do need to remind everyone who's watching that we are not providing medical advice or legal advice. We are privileged to be offering information for parents, for grandparents, and for others who care for children that can help them in their care for children, help you in your care for children. So I'm delighted to begin now with Kirti Gandhi. Welcome, Kirti.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Kirti, let's begin with telling our viewers what is the Crisis Nursery where you're serving right now?
Okay, so the Maryville Crisis Nursery is the only crisis nursery in the city of Chicago that serves, that provides childcare for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 365 days a year. They not only provide childcare services, but they also provide support services for the parents with whatever resources they might need. That may include educational resources, getting started with therapy for the parents or for the children, as well as finding jobs. So they do a whole lot.
Thank you for that introduction. And I'm happy to say that Maryville has been offering this crisis nursery to families in the Cook County and beyond areas for more than 10 years. So we're located on Irving Park Road in Chicago, and the crisis nursery serves children birth to 6.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes, we do.
Now, Kirti, what's your role at the crisis nursery?
So currently I am the occupational therapy intern at the Maryville Crisis Nursery. So what I'm doing is providing educational programs for the child care staff, as well as providing sensory-based activities for the children.
And how did you find the crisis nursery?
So I honestly just have a passion for the pediatric population and making a positive difference in their growth and development. So at the Maryville Crisis Nursery, I'm allowed to play a role in that. And while I've been at the nursery, I've definitely seen a lot of change and growth in some of the children with the activities that we've been doing.
All right, so let's talking just a little bit more about the context, and I want then to get into occupational therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, big words.
Yes, it is.
But first, for our parents to know, we serve children birth to 6, and at the crisis nursery, we can provide the kind of care for the children you just described for a period of up to 72 hours, day and night.
Yes.
But then families may come back, and then we have ongoing work. So we may understand what a crisis nursery does in terms of welcoming a child staying overnight, providing some play for the child, but what about occupational therapy? What is occupational therapy?
So occupational therapy is a profession. We work in a variety of different settings. So we work from patients from birth to geriatrics. So it's a very big population that we work with. You can see occupational therapists in home settings with children, where the therapists come to the child's house, as well as in home health settings, where the therapist will come to the house for an elderly patient. You can see us in hospitals, in therapy clinics, nursing homes, community-based settings, just a variety of different settings. So what we do is we provide services that allow people to become independent as possible, whether that be with infants in helping them reach their developmental milestones and be able to play and function in everyday life, as well as keep up with their peers. Or it can be with the elderly population where they have maybe just undergone a surgical procedure, and we help them regain their functional independence and be able to perform their activities of daily living, such as bathing themselves, dressing themselves, feeding themselves, and be able to return home as independent as possible.
So I think that many of us in the field, not you, Kirti, because you're more studied in this, but many of us as laypersons hear occupational therapy and we think of the one example you just gave, that I've had some kind of injury or surgery and I need to be able to regain some kind of mobility or balance, as you said, with parts of the body.
Right.
Now, you have referenced pediatric care
Yes.
in your particular work in this area. So you're working with something known as sensory integration theory. Is that
Yes.
right? And what is that?
So sensory integration therapy is essentially utilizing all of our senses. So there are the 5 basic ones that we know about, which is our vision, our hearing, our sense of taste, our sense of smell, our sense of touching. And then there's also 2 other senses that we don't often think about, which is our balance of movement sense and then our body awareness sense. So sensory integration therapy is, or sensory integration theory is essentially combining all those senses and being able to function in our everyday life using those senses.
So you're going to talk to us about some steps that are part of normal life and that should be in as opportunities for children, not because they've been injured or sick, but simply because it's part of development.
Correct.
Okay. And what age should this begin?
So sensory play begins, right at birth. So sensory play is essentially, like I just talked about, we using our senses. So we use our eyes to see, we use our ears to listen to different sounds, we taste food, we taste different textures and different flavors, we touch different types of textures, whether they be soft or hard or mushy or sticky or slimy. We use our balance system to run our walk, and we have body awareness so that we know how much pressure to put on certain objects when we pick or pull them up. So with children, they use that on a daily basis when they play. So an example might be, when children are outside in the yard and they're playing with kickball. They're using their eyes to look at the ball. They're listening to all the other people in their environment. They're using their body awareness sense to know where their body is, as well as knowing how much pressure or force to kick the ball. So we use it on a daily basis.
Well, it sounds like the very natural kind of activities that we want our children to be engaged in. So let me take you back to this should begin at birth.
Yes, it should.
So we have parents, grandparents, caregivers watching the program. We have a newborn baby or the baby's maybe a few weeks old. What can they be doing right now with that dear child to begin sensory play?
So for birth to 3 months, so you to provide sensory activities, you want to encourage the baby to hold or shake or rattle, be able to. You want to hold the baby in a variety of different positions so that they know where their body is. You want to provide them with a lot of skin-to-skin contact. You want to smile at the baby so they recognize your facial expressions. You can show your baby picture books and have them touch different textures that are in some of the books. So those are some of just the basic things that you can do for the younger children.
So parents, if you think that you've been holding your child and maybe talking to your child, singing to your child, making sounds with your child, that's sensory play.
Yes, it is.
What about if parents have a mirror near their baby and the baby can see into the mirror? Is that part of sensory play?
That is also with sensory play. So what I would recommend is, hanging a mirror on the wall and then tap the mirror, and you would say the baby's name and see if they respond. They'll understand that over time they'll begin to understand that you've called out their name. They're beginning to respond. So that is sensory play.
So parents, if this sounds to you like something you've seen done or you've been doing and it seems like common sense, yes it is, but it's also common sense because there's a whole body of knowledge that Kirti is telling us, out of which we know that this is good for the baby. And not just for babies, right? What if the child be a little bit older now?
Yeah, so let's say the child is, 2 or 3 or even older. Some activities you could try that are touch related would be just to try out different textures. So trying out activities in the water, getting in the pool, trying out different textures such as rice or shaving cream, or slime, making activities out of those different textures. That would be considered sensory play.
So these are some steps, Kirti, I think you're offering that are really items that are in the home or in the yard that are safe, in fact, good for the child to be experiencing, and it's really continuing some of the sensory play.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, you mentioned rice. I presume there's other vegetables that a child can be touching?
Yes.
And fruits?
Yes, that's for sure. So another thing that's just in your environment is when you go to the grocery store, a sensory activity would be to have them push the cart. Have them recognize how much force they're putting on the cart. And then have them also explore the different types of vegetables that you might be buying, or the fruits that you might be buying, or whatever items that you're buying at the grocery store. Have them touch the different textures, and they'll begin to recognize, what those different textures are.
So I'm going to make another comment here, if I may, Kirti, because this is important in what we try to say in this program each month. There are a lot of things we can do for our children that don't cost a lot of money. And what Kirti's talking about is us using the environment in which we already live, which we have our children, or the environments to which we take our children,
Yes.
and using those for sensory play. So a child at home who's feeling the vegetables or may have some toys, but we don't have to buy expensive toys for children to have this experience.
That's
Would
correct.
that be fair?
That's completely correct.
Because what we want is that we're creating these opportunities for our children. Now, you've talked a lot about touch, and you mentioned all 5 of the senses. What about sound? Can you give some suggestions to families in the environment? What are good sounds for the child to hear?
So an example would be, going out and taking a walk, perhaps, and listening to the birds, or listening to, all the different sounds that are going on in our environment. The trucks and cars passing by, like I mentioned, the birds chirping, other environmental sounds that are going on. It doesn't have to be outside. It can be in the home, listening to songs or singing songs. That's another form of sensory play.
Okay, so families can be singing
Yes.
with the child. Okay. How about smell?
So smelling, so what we can do as an activity for smelling would be smelling flowers, smelling the different types of fruits and vegetables that we have. Some fruits and vegetables are a little bit stronger, such as peppers, compared to, spinach. Like, there's not really a smell. But
We hope not.
Yeah. But just recognizing that certain smells are sweeter and some are not.
Okay, so, and then perhaps parents talking to the child about
The
those differences.
the differences.
Now, you mentioned body awareness, and you gave examples of a child experiencing using different force for body awareness. Could you talk a little bit more about balance?
Okay, so with the balance system, that's really crucial for the development. So that could, like, if you wanted an activity, just walking in our daily environment, walking up inclines, walking up and down the stairs, those are all balance-related activities.
Okay, and so when children begin to get involved a little bit in sports, are those also balance?
Yes,
Or could be.
all of those play a role. Well, when we get involved in sports, we're using all of our senses, and that is allowing us to play the sport.
also. So, parents, we know that you've been doing a lot of these kinds of steps already, but I think it's really important for us to know that you're really doing a very smart thing for your child because you are providing sensory play. You may have known that, but we want to encourage it. Now, we have a caller, and I just want to remind you, before we take the caller, that you are watching Maryville Cares live on Cable Access Network Television 21, and also this is streaming online on cantv.org/hotline. This evening's discussion is on sensory play to help our children, and we'd like to invite the caller, please.
One of the things I don't hear parents talk about a lot of the time, what you call normal childhood development. And one of the things the children that do under 3, they're going to write on the wall. Why not try to encourage that? There's paint you could buy, and you could tell a child, well, this is your section of the wall where you can write, and they got special type of paint where you could just pretty much take a rag and wipe it off, and you can encourage a child to write in a constructive type way. And I don't see parents doing things in that type of way to encourage children in terms of certain type of development.
Thank you for that point. I'm going to ask Kirti, if parents can provide somewhere, the caller's suggesting even a wall that can be cleaned, or maybe parents have another option in the home. But what about the value of having children encouraged to write?
I think that's a very valuable lesson. Providing, what's really important is providing those opportunities for children to learn and grow. So it can be on the wall where it's washable. It can be in a certain area of the room where it's, designated for a play area or, writing on the wall. So just encouraging that development is very crucial.
And why is that writing experience good for sensory play?
Well, just writing, like if we're writing or painting or using or even coloring, we're seeing the different colors. It's really good for fine motor development.
Okay.
So, yes.
So now, Kirti has brought us a few resources that we want to be sure and tell our parents about. So what you're going to see on our screen are references to pathways. I'm going to ask Kirti about this in just a moment. And also about the American Occupational Therapy Association, and then our own Maryville website. So Kirti, why Pathways? How is this helpful?
So I found the Pathways website very useful. It is a clinic that offers a variety of therapy services, and they have a lot of information regarding sensory integration therapy, sensory play. They have a lot of informational videos on YouTube, which I found very helpful. So that's a great resource to go to.
So if parents want to find some more information about the sensory play, they could go to that website. I'm going to show it again. It's www.pathways.org.
Yes.
And it has the resources you just described. Now, why did you offer us the website for American Occupational Therapy Association?
So the American Occupational Therapy Association, I gave you guys that website primarily because of, explaining what the role of occupational therapy is, what populations we serve, how can occupational therapy benefit your child, because not very many people know what occupational therapy is. So that's a great resource to go and look up and see how your child might be able to benefit from OT services.
Now, Kirti, you're talking about how important it is for this sensory play. You yourself are involved with some children in sensory play. If parents are working with their children in sensory play, or when you're working with it, how do you see that it's helping? What's a sign of progress?
So some of the things that I've just noticed while I have been at the crisis nursery is that you can just see the growth and development and the personalities of the children just come out. Some of the positive growth that I've seen is that they're talking more, they're communicating with the other children more. They're very engaged and they're participating in the activities. So you can just see a positive improvement in the children.
All right. And you were talking before about some of the activities for balance. Can you see that improvement as the child walks or moves around?
Yes, for sure. Some of we do have infants at the crisis nursery, and some of the activities that we've done with them have definitely enabled them to, start walking or start crawling. So some of those balance-related activities have definitely helped.
All right, so, and parents, you know how important it is when your child starts to crawl. We want to be able to help the child progress and develop those muscles and some of that insight.
Yes.
All right, now I have to come to what might be a controversial subject, Kirti.
Okay.
But we hear a lot about children having screen time.
Yes.
And by that I'm referring to how much time a child should be watching television or on the mobile devices, cell phones or iPads or other tablets that might be available. Can you offer some suggestions to parents? And I want to say right now, we're not opposed to children beginning to learn technology, but what is the impact given our goals for sensory play?
So, it is okay to have a child in front of the iPad or give them the phone, but just like anything else, it's okay to do it in moderation. But some of the impacts that it might potentially have is that they might be not able to use their hands as well, or not develop their hand strength as well as they should. Their vision might be a little impacted. Their balance and movement system is definitely going to be impacted because they're not up and moving around. They're not exploring their environment.
Okay, so if I'm saying this correctly, please help me. We're not saying it's bad for children to have screen time, but I think what's a concern is if the children have so much screen time that they're not engaging in sufficient sensory play.
Correct.
That's the concern.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions to parents about how much time is appropriate for screen time for children?
Yes, I do. So according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, they recommend that children who are under the age of 18 months, you should avoid screen time unless it's for video chatting. So for FaceTime or chatting with your relatives. Parents of children who are 18 to 24 months of age who want to introduce digital media should really choose high quality programming, and they should sit down and watch the program with their child and understand what they're watching. For children ages 2 to 5 years old, you want to limit the amount of screen time to 1 hour per day for high quality programs. And with that, you should also monitor what they're watching and help them understand what they're watching. For children ages 6 years and older, you should place consistent limits on the time that is spent on the media and the types of media that they're getting into. You want to make sure that the electronic devices aren't replacing, physical activity or sleep or other behavioral needs. And you should also designate media-free times, such as, when you're eating dinner together, just having family time.
Another good idea, dinner together. Right,
Yes.
that's important. Kirti, we have perhaps 30 seconds for you to say a recommendation to parents about sensory play. Anything else that you want to tell our parents before we have to bring this to a close?
So one of the things I definitely want to hit home is that sensory play is not this big hard thing to achieve. It can start at the home with the very basics. It can start with you singing to your child. It can begin with banging pots and pans and making sounds and music, or just talking to your child. So it can be very simple.
So parents, as Kirti has just been talking about, it's this time you spend with your child and the ways in which you encourage the use of their senses. All of this is going to bring benefits to them for sensory play. Thank you for being with us. I'm Sister Catherine Ryan from Maryville Academy. Our guest has been Kirti Gandhi from our Maryville Crisis Nursery. We are on Cable Access Network, Television 21, and also cantv.org/hotline. Thank you.
Thank you.